The sky wasn't supposed to burn like that. I remember the sound first, a ripping, metallic scream cutting through the silence of night. Then came the explosion. A flash of orange tore the clouds apart, lighting up the ocean like daylight. And in that split second, I thought I saw something, a figure stumbling through the fire. Blood, smoke, and something that looked like a uniform. My heart froze. That wasn't supposed to happen. Not to me, not to them, and definitely not because of my jet. I dropped the phone. The news alert still flashed on the screen. Private jet intercepted by U.S. Air Force near restricted airspace. My jet, the one I left locked in my hangar 2 days ago. The one my HOA was supposed to keep an eye on. Now it was burning on live TV, while sirens screamed across the city. I ran outside, barefoot, still in a t-shirt. The night smelled like smoke, metal, and panic. My neighbors stood on their lawns, whispering, filming, pretending they didn't know me. And then I saw it. A shadow at the end of the street. Someone watching me. Still. Silent. Their face hidden behind the glow of a cigarette. They didn't move, even when I shouted. Just one sentence drifted back through the darkness. Should have never given them the keys. My blood turned cold. Who them? The HOA board? The same people who fined me for painting my fence the wrong shade of white? I didn't understand, but I would, soon. And when I did, it would already be too late. Because the truth about that night, the real reason the jet exploded, would destroy everything I thought I knew about my neighborhood, my friends, and even myself. Every second you're not watching, someone else is covering up what really happened. Stay until the end. You'll never see the HOA the same way again. My name's Alex Monroe. I live in a gated community just outside of Los Angeles. One of those neighborhoods where everything looks perfect, but nothing really is. You know the type: perfect lawns, perfect smiles, and an HOA board that thinks it's the Supreme Court. And yeah, I'm that guy. The one with the private jet parked in his own hangar 5 miles from home. But before you roll your eyes, hear me out. I earned it. Every dollar, every flight hour, every scar. That jet wasn't a toy. It was my escape. My reminder that freedom still existed in a world built on rules and fake smiles. But the HOA didn't like that. They said my lifestyle was a distraction. They said the neighborhood needed to set an example. So when I told them I was flying to New York for a week, they smiled. That same tight, artificial smile that means we're planning something. And I should have noticed, because the next 7 days would turn my life into something out of a nightmare. At first, everything felt normal. I left my home in peace, handed the hangar keys to Mark, the HOA president, and trusted him. He was the kind of guy who talked about community values but drove a car worth more than most people's houses. Still, he'd always been polite to me. Too polite, maybe. And that's why I didn't think twice. I boarded my flight, checked into a Manhattan hotel, and forgot about them. For a few days, I actually felt free again. But then weird things started happening. The security system at my hangar sent me random alerts. Door opened. Motion detected. I called Mark. He laughed it off. Probably just wind, Alex. Don't worry, we got it. Except there was no wind. And the footage from my cameras had been wiped clean. Every single day. That's when something in my gut twisted. Because if you've ever had something you love, truly love, you feel when it's in danger. I started getting calls from neighbors. They said they'd seen unusual activity around my property. One even mentioned a van showing up at night. But when I asked for proof, suddenly nobody remembered anything. It was like they'd been told to forget. And just when I thought it couldn't get weirder, I got a text from an unknown number. It said, "Enjoy New York. The party's just starting." No name, no context, just that one line. And here's where things start spiraling out of control. Because what that party meant, what they were actually doing with my jet, would make you question every person you've ever trusted. Coming up, you'll see how a simple act of betrayal turned into a national security nightmare, and how the HOA crossed a line they could never uncross. But before we get there, remember this: I'm Alex Monroe. And this is the story of how my neighbors, the people I waved to every morning, used my private jet for the wildest, most illegal party in U.S. history, and how the Air Force almost shot them down for it. I remember the exact moment I found out. It was 2:14 a.m. New York time. I couldn't sleep. Something in my chest just wouldn't let me. So I grabbed my phone, opened the hangar security app again. And this time, there was a feed. For 2 seconds. Then it vanished. But those 2 seconds changed everything. Because I saw people, not strangers, faces I recognized. The HOA board, Mark, Susan, even old Mr. Patel from across the street. They were laughing, drinking, inside my jet, music blaring, lights flashing, and a big banner draped across the hangar wall that said, HOA Summer Bash, VIP access only. I froze. My name's Alex Monroe, and in that moment, I realized my neighbors had stolen my life, piece by piece, and turned it into their playground. They were dancing inside a machine worth $15 million. One wrong move, one spill, one bad idea, and everything I'd built could go up in smoke. I tried calling Mark. No answer. Then Susan. Straight to voicemail. Finally, I called my pilot, Derek, a quiet guy the first trusted more than anyone. He picked up, voice shaking. Alex, you didn't approve this, did you? I said no. And then he whispered, then you better get back here. Now. I booked the next flight out. Didn't pack, didn't sleep, just moved. Every mile closer to home, my chest burned hotter. And the whole time, that text replayed in my head, enjoy New York. The party's just starting. Whoever sent it, they knew. They knew this was happening. And maybe, they planned it. By the time I landed in LA, my phone was blowing up. Messages from neighbors, from journalists, from the FAA. Apparently, the HOA party wasn't just in my hangar anymore. They'd actually taxied the jet out. Derek tried to stop them. They threatened to fire him, said they had clearance. He quit on the spot, and walked out. But the HOA didn't. They took off. They actually took off. With no pilot, no clearance, and no clue what they were doing. And I swear, this isn't a movie. This really happened. When I got to the airport, the runway lights were still on. Police cars everywhere. And my heart nearly stopped when I saw the screen in the control tower. My jet, in the air. Flying, but not by me. That's when I realized, this wasn't about a party. This was something bigger. Someone had convinced them they could get away with it, or maybe, someone wanted them up there. And trust me, what happened next? You're not ready for it. Coming up, how a suburban HOA flight turned into a full-blown U.S. Air Force pursuit. And why I might be the only person who knows what they were really trying to do with my jet that night. But first, remember who's talking to you. I'm Alex Monroe, and I'm the guy whose neighbors stole his jet, flew it into restricted airspace, and turned the most expensive party of the year into a military incident. By the time I reached the airfield control tower, everything was chaos. Radios screamed, alarms blared, a dozen people were shouting at once, pointing at radar screens glowing with red dots. And there, dead center, was my jet. My name's Alex Monroe, and I swear to you, in that moment, my own plane looked like a live bomb on a national radar. Who's flying it? I yelled. No one could answer. The transponder was off. The call sign wasn't registering. To them, it looked like an unidentified aircraft heading straight for restricted airspace near Edwards Air Force Base. One of the officers looked at me like I'd just confessed to terrorism. Is that your plane? He asked. I nodded. Then, sir, you'd better start talking. I tried explaining, the HOA, the stolen access codes, the unauthorized flight. But they didn't care. Protocol was already in motion. 2 F-16s had been scrambled from Nellis. ETA, 4 minutes. And all I could think about was the people on board. Mark, Susan, the others. The same neighbors who fined me for having a taller mailbox. Now they were flying a multi-ton jet with no training, no clearance, and no clue that 2 supersonic fighters were about to intercept them. The air traffic feed crackled. Unidentified aircraft, this is the United States Air Force. You are entering restricted airspace. Respond immediately or you will be engaged. Static. Then laughter. Someone, probably Mark, had turned on the jet's sound system and was blasting music over the open frequency. They thought it was still a game. I slammed my hand against the console. Shut it down. Just get them down. The officer turned to me, cold. Sir, if they don't respond, we'll have no choice. No choice. 2 words that echoed like gunshots. And that's when I saw it. A faint blip breaking formation on the radar. One of the F-16s was moving closer. Faster. Someone was about to make a call that couldn't be undone. Coming up, I whispered to the camera later, you'll hear what they said over the comms. The exact words before everything went dark. Because even now, years later, I can still hear them. That clipped, professional voice over the radio. Target confirmed. Awaiting engagement authorization. For a split second, I thought I'd lose them all. my neighbors, my jet, my freedom, everything. Then, silence. The radar blinked once, twice, then nothing. The screen went blank. Did they fire? I asked. No one answered. The tower was frozen, every face pale, eyes glued to the sky outside. That's when I ran, out of the tower, onto the tarmac, eyes searching the dark horizon. And then I saw it. A faint trail of smoke cutting across the night sky, coming from the direction of my jet. I thought that was it. But what fell from the sky next wasn't wreckage. It was something else, something that shouldn't have been on that plane. Coming up, you'll find out what was inside my jet, and why the Air Force didn't shoot it down after all. But remember who's telling you this. I'm Alex Monroe, and this is the night my own neighborhood went to war with the United States Air Force. When the radar went dark, everyone thought the jet had gone down. Emergency crews were already moving before anyone confirmed a crash. But then, a voice broke through the static, hoarse, frantic, alive. This is Monroe JET 47. We're landing. The signal cut out again. But that was enough to send every unit racing toward the coordinates. And me, Alex Monroe, I was right behind them. The jet had landed rough, skidding off a desert strip outside Barstow. One engine smoking, the fuselage cracked but not destroyed. No explosions, no fire, just silence and dust. It looked almost peaceful, if you ignored the flashing red lights and military trucks surrounding it. I remember stepping out of the SUV and feeling the heat hit me. The air reeked of jet fuel and something else. Chemical, metallic. An officer held me back, but I could see through the open cabin door. And what I saw didn't make sense. It wasn't a party anymore. No lights, no laughter. The seats had been ripped out, replaced with boxes, hundreds of them, each one marked with black tape and a government seal I didn't recognize. Who authorized this? I demanded. No one answered. Mark was on the ground, handcuffed, face pale. Susan was crying. Mr. Patel just stared at the sand, whispering something under his breath. They looked like they'd seen death. An agent in a gray suit stepped forward. You're Alex Monroe? Yeah, he nodded slowly. Then we need to talk. Alone. We moved behind a Humvee. He opened one of the boxes, just enough for me to see what was inside. Stacks of cash, bundles of microchips, and a document folder labeled Defense Procurement Prototype. I felt sick. This wasn't mine. None of it was. How did this get on my jet? The agent didn't blink. That's what we're trying to figure out. Then he leaned in closer. But right now, it looks like you put it there. That hit like a bullet. I tried explaining, the HOA, the stolen keys, the unauthorized flight. He listened, silent, then turned to look at the jet again. Funny thing, Mr. Monroe, he said, your security footage is gone. Every backup file, every camera, wiped clean yesterday. I didn't even react. I couldn't. It was like the ground had just disappeared beneath me. Because if they'd planted that stuff, if they'd turned my jet into a smuggling vessel, then someone wanted me buried with it. Coming up, I whispered into the camera later, you'll see what I found inside the HOA office. The files, the recordings, the truth that made everything explode again. But back there, in that desert, I could only watch as soldiers unloaded box after box. And I remember Mark shouting something before they dragged him away. They said it was legal. They said it was for the neighborhood fund. The neighborhood fund. Right. My name's Alex Monroe, and that night, I realized, the people I shared fences and barbecues with weren't just bad neighbors. They were criminals, and someone powerful was using them to move something far bigger than money. What was inside those boxes wasn't meant for anyone like us to see. And the moment I did, I knew my life would never go back to normal. Because the real enemy wasn't my HOA anymore. It was whoever gave them permission. Coming up, how I broke into the HOA's office, what I found on Mark's hidden drive, and why that discovery made me the most wanted man in my own city. They released me at dawn. No charges yet, just warnings. I drove straight back to the neighborhood, the same streets where kids rode bikes and sprinklers hissed like nothing had happened. But behind every window, I could feel eyes watching me, judging, whispering. My name's Alex Monroe, and by that morning, I wasn't a neighbor anymore, I was a suspect. The HOA office sat at the edge of the cul-de-sac, locked, silent, curtains drawn. But I knew they'd left something inside, records, drives, anything that could explain why my jet had turned into a floating crime scene. I waited until the street went quiet. Then I went in. One lockpick, one deep breath, and I was standing in the dark heart of my own nightmare. The air smelled of old coffee and fear. Files scattered everywhere, as if someone had tried to leave in a hurry. On the desk, a laptop still warm. Its wallpaper was a photo of Mark and the HOA board smiling at last year's barbecue. I opened it, password protected, but Mark was predictable, his dog's name, Bailey. It worked. The desktop was chaos. Invoices, fake donation receipts, hidden folders buried inside folders. And then I found it, one labeled Community Project, Do Not Open. Inside were scanned contracts between the HOA and a private defense contractor. Amounts in the millions. Every page stamped confidential. And attached at the bottom, a drive letter, marked with my name. My stomach dropped. I opened it. Video files. Dozens of them. Hidden camera footage, my hangar, my jet, my own living room. They'd been watching me for months. Studying me. Mapping when I was home, when I flew, when I slept. That's when I realized, the HOA wasn't just covering up corruption. They were running a full-scale operation. And I had been their perfect cover story. Then, from outside, a car door slammed. Headlights cut through the window blinds. Someone was coming. I killed the monitor, ducked behind the desk. Footsteps. 2 sets. A key turning in the lock. Coming up, I whispered into my recorder, "You'll hear what they said when they realized I was still inside." Because I can still hear it now, the sound of Mark's voice, low and panicked. "They found the drive. He's got it." I froze. They weren't supposed to know yet. How? The footsteps came closer. Mark's shadow crossed the desk. He stopped inches from me. Then, a phone vibrated. He picked it up. "Yeah," he said, "he's here." Silence. Then, understood. They turned toward the door again. Left. I exhaled, shaking. And when I stood up, the laptop screen flashed once before dying, as if someone remote wiped it in real time. Everything gone. But I still had one thing. The hidden drive I'd pocketed before they came in. It wasn't much, but it was proof. And it would lead me to something even worse. The truth about who had funded all of this. My name's Alex Monroe, and if you think this story ends with a few corrupt neighbors, you're wrong. Coming up, you'll see what was on that drive, and why the people behind it would rather burn the whole neighborhood to the ground than let me show it to the world. I didn't go home that night. I couldn't. I drove out past the city limits, parked near an abandoned rest stop, and plugged the drive into my laptop. The screen flickered once, then came alive. Dozens of folders appeared. Dates, names, bank records. My name on half of them. My name on transfers I'd never seen before. I'm Alex Monroe, and that was the moment I realized, they hadn't just stolen my jet. They'd stolen me. Each folder opened into more chaos. PDF invoices, encrypted messages, even scanned IDs of people who didn't exist. It wasn't just the HOA. They were the front. Behind them, a company called Averline Development, supposedly a property improvement group. Except, every dollar that passed through the HOA maintenance fund ended up in Averline's offshore accounts. And from there, into the pockets of defense subcontractors. It was money laundering. Big, sophisticated, invisible. And my jet, my personal aircraft, was how they moved physical assets without raising alarms. That's why the cargo looked military. That's why the Air Force was involved. They thought I was part of it. My hands were shaking. There were emails, too, between Mark and someone named R. Carter. Short messages. Cold. Efficient. Test load successful. Next shipment in 7 days. Monroe won't suspect. Ensure documentation matches HOA reimbursements. Destroy backups. Then came one file that wasn't like the others, a video clip. Timestamped the night before the jet took off. I hit play. The screen showed the HOA office. Mark was there, pacing, phone to his ear. "You said it was safe." He hissed. No one said anything about weapons. A pause. Then a distorted voice replied, "Just get it airborne. After that, it's not your problem." Weapons. That single word turned my blood to ice. This wasn't about money anymore. It was about transport, moving something that wasn't supposed to exist. And my jet had just carried it straight into restricted skies. I shut the laptop and sat there in the dark, the weight of it pressing on my chest. If I turned this over to the authorities, I'd go down with them. If I didn't, I'd be complicit in whatever they'd done. It was the kind of choice that breaks a person. And that's when the headlights appeared in my rearview mirror. 2 cars. No plates. Slow. Deliberate. They'd found me. I grabbed the drive, shoved it into my pocket, and ran into the desert. Behind me, I heard doors slam and voices shouting my name. Alex, let's talk. Yeah, right. Coming up, I told my camera later, you'll see what happened when I realized the HOA wasn't acting alone, and how far the people behind them would go to erase the truth. I'm Alex Monroe, and that night, as I hid among the rocks with my laptop dying in my hands, I learned something terrifying. This wasn't just a neighborhood cover-up. It was a federal operation. And I was the loose end. Coming up next, the key point number 8. The man behind the curtain, when I met R. Carter. That's when everything changed, and I finally saw who was really pulling the strings. 3 days after I found the drive, I got a message. No number, no name, just a location, a small airfield outside Palm Springs. And 3 words. You want answers? I should have ignored it, but I couldn't. My name's Alex Monroe, and when you've been hunted long enough, you start needing the truth more than sleep. I drove there before sunrise. The place looked abandoned, cracked pavement, rusted hangars, a flag half torn by wind. But when I stepped inside one of the hangars, a voice echoed from the shadows. Mr. Monroe, you're a hard man to reach. He stepped forward, mid-50s, gray suit, calm eyes that looked like they'd already measured my pulse. R. Carter, he said, extending a hand. I didn't shake it. Why me? I asked. He smiled. Because you had something we needed. A clean asset. A reputation. A jet that could cross borders without questions. I felt my stomach twist. You used my HOA as a front. He nodded. We use a lot of things, Alex. HOAs, churches, charities. They're useful, invisible. Nobody suspects the nice people next door. For a second, I didn't even feel angry, just cold. Everything I'd seen, every neighbor's fake smile, every meeting about community values, it was all part of his design. Carter kept talking, calm, methodical. The shipments weren't weapons. Not yet. They were prototypes. We test, we move, we erase. Erase? I asked. He looked right at me. You've seen how well we do it. And that's when I noticed his phone on the table, open to a feed. A live feed. Of my house. Camera angle from my own living room. My blood froze. He knew everything. Where I lived. Who I called. Even that I'd recorded parts of my story. Coming up, I said quietly into my hidden mic, you'll see what Carter offered me, and the choice that nearly got me killed. Because in that moment, he leaned closer and said, you can walk away, Alex. We'll fix the records, clear your name, give you back your life. All you have to do is hand over the drive. It was a trap, and I knew it. But I hesitated. You ever have a moment where your brain screams no but your body just stops moving? That was me. Because for a second, the thought of peace, of normal, felt heavier than justice. Then Carter said something I'll never forget. Heroes die. Neighbors forget. Stories fade. But deals last forever. That snapped me out of it. I grabbed the drive from my pocket, held it out, then slammed it against the metal table, shattering it into pieces. For the first time, I saw emotion on his face, not anger, not fear. Disbelief. He took a slow breath. You shouldn't have done that. I turned to leave. The hangar lights flickered once, then went dark. Behind me, footsteps. I ran. Outside, the morning light was blinding. Bullets hit the gravel near my feet. I dove behind a car, started it without thinking, and tore down the runway with smoke rising behind me. Coming up, you'll see what happened when I tried to expose them, how the truth spread faster than they could contain it, and what it cost me to finally make them fall. But remember who's talking to you. I'm Alex Monroe, and the man behind the curtain, R. Carter, wasn't finished with me yet. Not by a long shot. The moment the drive shattered, I thought it was over. But the truth doesn't die that easily, it spreads, it mutates, it finds another way out. My name's Alex Monroe, and what happened next changed everything. I had backups, not on me, not even in the country. Hidden fragments of data stored across encrypted servers, buried under fake HOA documents and insurance claims. For months, I'd been preparing for this. And when Carter's men stormed that hangar, I triggered something I hoped I'd never have to use, a timed upload. At exactly 9 a.m., while I was still running through the desert, the first wave went live. Emails, photos, bank records, names. Within minutes, every major news outlet had it. The world saw what our community really was. A distribution hub for black market tech disguised as suburban order. But it wasn't just data that leaked. It was faces. Mine. Carter's. Everyone who'd ever signed a board meeting agenda. They put us on the news, together. Guilt by proximity. Coming up, I told my camera between gasps, you'll see what they did to silence me after the story broke, and how I learned that exposure doesn't mean freedom. Because here's the thing nobody tells you about truth. It doesn't set you free. It paints a target on your back. By sunset, my phone was useless. My account's frozen. The media called me a whistleblower. Carter called me a traitor. Both were right. That night, I found shelter in an abandoned motel just outside Barstow. No lights, no phone, just me, the hum of the desert, and the quiet certainty that I destroyed something much bigger than I understood. Halfway through the night, a car pulled up outside. No headlights, no sound except the crunch of gravel under tires. I grabbed my recorder. "This is Alex Monroe," I whispered, "and if you're hearing this, it means they found me." The door creaked. I raised the gun, hands shaking. A silhouette filled the doorway. Not Carter. Not one of his men. It was someone I hadn't seen since this began. Lena, the only person who ever believed me. She looked terrified. "They know, Alex," she whispered. "They're wiping everything, the servers, the news, even the broadcasts. You started a fire they can't control." And before I could speak, she added, "But they're coming. Now." That's when the power went out. Beat coming up next, you'll see how we tried to run, how the truth fought back, and what it really cost to stay alive when everyone you trusted became a threat. Remember, I'm still Alex Monroe, and if you think the exposure was the end, you have no idea what came next. The night swallowed us whole. The motel behind us was already in flames, orange reflections bouncing off the hood of Lena's car as we tore down the empty highway. I could still feel the shockwave in my chest, the glass shards embedded in my arms. The fire wasn't an accident. They wanted witnesses gone. They wanted us erased. My name's Alex Monroe, and if you've made it this far, remember this: the truth never runs alone. It drags everything you love down with it. Lena's hands shook on the steering wheel. "They're tracking us," she said, voice cracking. "How?" I asked. "I killed every transmitter." She didn't answer. Then I saw it. A faint red light blinking under the rearview mirror. Not a GPS. A surveillance tag. She ripped it off, threw it out the window, and for a moment, silence filled the car. Then headlights appeared in the mirror. 1, 2, then 5. Black SUVs, no plates. And they were gaining. I grabbed the camera. Yes, I still had it. "Coming up," I told the lens, my breath ragged, "you'll see what happens when the people you expose decide you don't get to tell the ending." The roar of engines swallowed my voice. Gunshots sparked off the rear bumper. Lena screamed, swerving. I reached for the glove box, pulled out the pistol I'd taken from Carter's safe. Only 3 bullets. 3 chances to rewrite the ending. We hit the dirt road off Highway 247. The tires screamed, dust rising like smoke. 1 SUV followed. Then another. I fired once, missed. Second shot, hit the front tire. The car flipped, metal twisting, bursting into fire. Lena's breathing turned into sobs. We kept driving, deeper into nowhere. "I told you, Alex," she said through tears. "They don't care about money or secrets anymore. They care about silence." I didn't answer. Because I knew she was right. They didn't want to kill me to stop the truth. They wanted to erase the idea that truth could ever matter. The desert opened around us, endless, silver under the moonlight. Then, a faint light in the distance. A hangar. My old one. The same one the HOA used when they took my jet. It shouldn't have been lit. It was supposed to be sealed. But there it was, humming like a heart that refused to stop. "Coming up," I whispered, "you're going to see what was waiting inside that hangar. What they were protecting all along." We parked behind a dune. The wind cut like knives. Lena clutched my arm. "Don't go in." "I have to," I said. "It started there." She looked at me, like she already knew she wouldn't see me again. I walked toward the hangar. Each step heavier than the last. The metal door groaned as I pushed it open. Inside, silence. Dust. The faint smell of aviation fuel. And then, laughter. Carter's voice echoed from the shadows. "I knew you'd come back, Alex." He stepped into the light, calm, unarmed, wearing that same smug smile. "You think exposure means victory?" he said. "You just burned down your own world for a headline." I aimed the gun. "You killed people, Carter. You used my jet. You lied to everyone." He nodded slowly. "And you think they'll remember that by morning?" Then he threw something toward me, a small black device, blinking. Before I could react, Lena screamed my name from outside. The device beeped once, twice. I ran. The explosion threw me across the sand, fire lighting the sky. I heard Lena's voice one last time, then nothing. When I woke up, it was morning. The hangar was gone. No Carter. No Lena. No evidence. Only smoke. And my camera, somehow still recording, half buried in the sand. "This is Alex Monroe," I whispered into the lens. "If you're hearing this, they failed to finish the job." I looked at the horizon, black SUVs burning in the distance. For the first time in months, I smiled. They wanted silence, but now everyone's listening. Beat coming up next. You'll hear the truth about what I found buried beneath that hangar, why the wall was only the surface, and how one man's neighborhood turned into a war zone that changed U.S. airspace forever. Stay until the end, because the real story hasn't even started. The desert was quiet, too quiet. Wind cut across the ashes like whispers of ghosts. My name's Alex Monroe. At least, it used to be. The camera blinked red, still recording. My voice echoed through the static. It didn't sound like me anymore. Raspy, hollow, detached. I looked around, no footprints. No wreckage, no Lena, just emptiness. The fire was gone. The hangar was gone. Even the tire tracks, gone. Like the night had erased itself. I turned the camera toward the horizon. And there, in the glare of the sun, something shimmered. Metal. Perfect. Untouched. A jet. My jet. It sat there, gleaming, as if none of it ever happened. No burns. No cracks. Pristine. Waiting. I walked closer. Every step felt heavier, slower, wrong. The air was thick, humming, vibrating under my skin. The door opened by itself. The stairs lowered. Inside, everything was exactly how I left it months ago. Coffee mug still half full. Jacket on the seat. Keys in the ignition. Coming up. I whispered to the lens, voice trembling. "You're not going to believe this." I climbed inside. The hum grew louder, deeper, almost alive. The cockpit lights flickered on, one by one. Then the radio. Static. Then, a voice. My own. "This is Alex Monroe. If you're hearing this, it means they failed to finish the job." My throat went dry. That was me. The exact recording I'd made the night before. Playing, live. I reached for the controls. But the switches moved on their own. The jet roared to life. The engines screamed. I couldn't move. Outside, the sand lifted like smoke, swirling around the plane. A blinding light flooded the cabin. Then, silence. Not the silence of peace. The silence of being erased. The camera fell from my hand. The last frame, my face frozen in confusion. Then static. Cut to black. And then, just one final line, whispered through the noise. "They never used my jet for a party." I think I was the party. Silence. End.